when I got back from the Goldman Sachs program, we did a SWOT analysis of the company, and the greatest threat everyone in the company identified at the time was me killing myself by working too much. And so flat. I was working 100-hour weeks. Wow. For months straight. And they're like, you've got to stop. And when I realized they're right, I've got to stop. I've got to slow down. Then it's a matter of, affording the people to hand it off to.
Yeah.
So
how'd you do that?
I love work. I love hard work. Physical, I don't know. It's part of who I am. I have a drive to do things. And so it's been difficult in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
Benji Sawyer, welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So you label yourself as the high-tech guru guy. Is that like Superman's Clark Kent identity?
No. I'm pretty irreverent just in my own everyday life. And we don't do fancy titles. We don't do stuffy stuff. In fact, in our job postings, we're talking about how we're not stuffed shirts. It got me in trouble when I was in corporate America a lot. They didn't always appreciate my sense of humor and how I approach things. And so now that I have a free hand to do whatever I want, that was something I came up with right after we started the company and really started doing it, almost 11 years ago now. And eventually I'm going to change that to something more something. I don't know what, but something. I don't know.
I say keep it as long as you can. It made me giggle when I was working on your intro. So you're the co-founder and CEO at Sawyer Solutions. You're a youth volunteer, skier, jogger, gamer when you have free time, right?
Yeah, I have 6 kids, so I don't have any free time anymore.
Amazing. I should have put that. Father of 6 children.
Yes. So that's when I had free time, I used to do those things. Now I have a business and 6 kids. That's pretty much all I do.
Awesome. So you grew up in a family of serial entrepreneurs, you told me. The mutual friend, Boyd Smith, who had an episode just recently, he talks about how rare it is and hard for first-generation entrepreneurs. What was it like growing up around entrepreneurs, and how did you think it shaped your future?
So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, just flat. So my parents... they started their first business after they got married back in the 70s. They did radio repair on airplanes. And then the Arab oil embargo shut all that down because no one flew anymore. They started a business painting towers, eventually turned into erecting towers, big giant steel towers that don't really get made much anymore. And so they've had a series of business over the years. My both sets of grandparents were entrepreneurs. One owned a tire store and were farmers. The other one had owned a gas station at one point in time and did a bunch of other things. And then of course, it goes back further than that. And so we've always, I guess, had an entrepreneurial spirit in ways. And I very, very, very strongly remember, it's a rite of passage. I tell my kids, as a Sawyer, you have to paint your parents' office. And so I remember doing that for them. My kids the older kids paint the office when we moved into it and stuff. And so, but I never wanted to do it. It was hard. While they've done a lot of, business types of things, they've never been really focused on success. It's never been about making a lot of money. It's more lifestyle for them. Some have made more money than others. And I mean, there are times we didn't really have much, and it was a lot of work. I saw how much work they put into it. And my friends' parents didn't work nearly as much. And so I never wanted to do it growing up. It was always, I was going to be a physicist or a scientist of some type, not going to be an entrepreneur. Here I am.
So you went to school for physics.
I did. And
then you ended up studying programming and becoming a web developer in the corporate world?
Yes. Turns out I hate physics.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely accurate. I'm a high level idea guy. And when you get into physics, if you don't know, I like the ideas behind the physics. The actual math I despise. And so, I did it until my senior year in college, realized this was not for me. I'd done programming, a lot of programming. I was actually programming professionally for a company my dad worked for, making good money at it as a college student, really enjoyed it, and decided that's what I want to do the rest of my life. And so started doing that.
So, but you actually wanted to be a physicist growing up.
So I want to be so everyone's like, you should be a scientist, right? And you get told something often enough, you do. And so I'm like, I like a challenge. And so what's the most challenging part of science? Physics. Yeah. And so I'd always had in my mind to be a physicist. Even though I was really, really good at chemistry, I would have been a great chemist because I like experiments. And there's a lot less math in chemistry. But I got stuck on my mind I was going to be a physicist and just stuck there until I realized senior year, I don't have to do this
Yeah.
thing. I can be something different.
I did the same thing. I went to school for physics, but I went to school for physics because I didn't want to be a physicist. I wanted to get into like computers, and I thought you kind of had to know physics to be like to work at like IBM or
Right.
or like Microsoft or something. Only to realize like there's plenty of other paths to be able to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not generally the primary career path.
That's right. So then on the side, you started Sawyer Solutions with your dad and 2 other men, but you had something different in mind.
Yeah,
didn't you?
so we started it, and it was a joint venture. We started the company Right Software, and once again, it's back to Tower. So the 2 people we were in business with were both structural engineers, and they my dad had hired them, or had helped hire them back when they worked at the Tower company together, 30 some years before we started the business, and they were fast friends, known each other a long time. And they needed inspection software to inspect towers, and so at the time, the only inspection softwares out there were all web-based, and the kind of inspections they were doing, there was no cell signal, or you were putting up a tower that had the cell signal, and so we had to write a completely offline method. We were going to write the software, they're going to market and sell for us. We wrote the software, didn't really get much selling done. So learned a valuable lesson there. A lot of valuable lessons on that one.
So the power structure thing doesn't work out, but you have an opportunity that comes up that lets you and your wife leave Memphis.
Yes.
And join the full-time.
So at the time, I was working for Brother International. We lived in Memphis. I didn't want to work there anymore. I didn't want to live there anymore. Let me phrase it like that. I would have been happy if they had a place in Golden, Colorado, and I'm more than happy they let me work there. They did not. Opportunity came up to basically step into the MSP role with a client who where my mom worked, and so we took it on and started being full-time MSP and transitioned out of corporate America into entrepreneurial life.
What was that first What would that look like? Was it more of a break fix type of?
No, it was actually full up MSP.
Was it?
Yeah, and so it was a really good. We didn't start with break fix. They actually were coming from a fully managed kind of style, and now it wasn't as much money as it needed to be as we discovered later on. But it was a good starting point for us to start out as this kind of stuff. Now most of the clients we acquired after that were break fix or a la carte, but that one started out as a full time.
How did you know how to structure that first one? I mean, you had never. Had you seen a managed service contract before?
Hadn't. Yeah. We just kind of took what they had and ran with it.
Yeah.
So
what are they paying you? Just pay us the same thing?
It was a little more, yeah. So we were better. We were doing a couple more things he wasn't doing, right?
Okay.
That's essentially, yes, correct.
Wow. So that's, first of all, that's got to be a pretty unique opportunity, because I feel like most starting MSPs have to go to some manual book, talk to somebody in the community and go, oh, this is what a contract should look like and what should be included in the package. And you actually had a customer that said, I need X, Y, and Z. And you said, we can deliver that.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a benefit of personal relationships. We're in Birmingham, Alabama, where relationships are key, and they'd known us for a long time. They trusted us. So we were a known quantity they were willing to take a risk on.
So what did the organization, the structure of the organization look like for like your organization at that time? What was your role? What was your dad's role?
Yeah. So, and the way we structure the business is my mom and my wife each own a quarter. My dad and I each own a quarter, just because that's the way we structure the business. At the time my dad was running as CEO, it was always designed for me to take over and run it. He's turning 74 this year. That was almost 11 years ago. So it was earlier in life, but they knew there's a ticking clock here, right? And so it was always going to be one of the things where they were going to turn it over to us or me and let me run it. So, but he had a lot more experience running a business than I had. I took one business class in college, and it was macroeconomics, which is only loosely business related. I came from corporate America. I was a senior web developer, and I was in charge of mentoring and all this kind of stuff, but it wasn't a business role. Right. And so since they had more experience in it, they basically, kind of ran the business at first, but it was still run as kind of my business, right? I had kind of the final say and stuff and everything like that. So what kind of a visionary were you in those early days? Obviously you weren't the CEO yet, but did you have directions could you see the possibility and the opportunities with the company? And like, what did the business model, the plan, what did it look like in those early days? So that's a great question, and I came to realizing I was a visionary late in life, because I always imagined visionary as Walt Disney. He's
Sure.
super creative, right? Because he's held up as the quintessential visionary, right? Super creative, all this kind of stuff. And I just didn't feel like I was that creative. But I am, just in a different way, right? And it's one of those things where, like, you don't think things you know about yourself, you think everyone else has those too, but they don't necessarily. Like, I have a friend who can't, like, see things in his head. Like, that's a thing, right? Everyone's pictures this, he thought it was metaphorical, not actual literal. And so I didn't really understand that. And so over the years, I kind of grew into it. And it really was about 2018 when I went to the Goldman Sachs program that I really started understanding that this is actually what I'm for, right? This is what I'm good at. I can see long term. I can see in the future, get an actual visual picture in my head of what I want the future to look like, and direct things towards that.
Yeah.
But early on we were scrambling to make it work. Batten down the hatches, figure out this whole new business we'd never been in before. Like, I mean, we'd done like MSP work for businesses we've worked with, but like never done it as an MSP. And so, like, trying to make all that work and everything like that was really what kind of consumed me for the first couple of years.
What were some of those early challenges, entrepreneurial challenges, business owner challenges that you experienced, and were they surprising to you? Were they surprising to your wife?
It took a lot longer to get our second customer than I thought it would. We were just handed this gift of a first customer.
Yeah.
It was a good sized customer. And so, like getting our second customer took a lot longer than I thought. And it was a really small customer. Like, it was a 2-computer shop, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then, like, so growing that, like, that's been the most challenging part. I'm not a sales guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a sales background. I'm a technical person. Just most MSP owners, you have the split, but a lot of them start out as technical people. I never wanted to do sales. I didn't have the skill set for it. I wasn't equipped for it. And so that's been still is consistently the most challenging part for us. We do great at getting referrals and all that kind of stuff, but, like, the actual sales, it's been a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've known you for the last sort of 3 or 4 years now, and I would say early on when I met you, first of all, you're very outgoing. You have no problem striking up a conversation, asking a question. And so it's interesting you say you're not a salesperson, but you have some of the sales characteristics, right? Like, you could go to the bar or a dinner or meet some stranger and start talking tech with them.
I can. That is a learned trait.
Okay.
So I used to, I'll censor this. Yeah. When I was programming, I used to say that I chose my career with malicious aforethought, so that I could dress casually and be a jerk to people.
Nice.
And it was just part of the course, right? Because who thinks programmers are nice guys? No one.
Yeah.
And so, I was extremely introverted. Wallflower kind of person. So the idea of going up and talking to people is something I've learned to do over the years. I spent a lot of time in B&I. That's what B&I is great for a lot of things, especially when you're starting out. Like, we didn't, like, the clients we got out of B&I, they got us to where we are, but they're not actually the clients we need going forward. But I learned a lot of things about networking and interacting with people and working on that kind of stuff, and that part of me as part of that, and that was very beneficial to me.
Talk about the business growing. You talked a little bit about how it took you a little bit of time to get that second client, but how long did it take you to get the third client and the fourth client? And then when did you start to realize, well, we need more staff and we've got to continue to grow? Just what was that evolution like?
So, I mean, it was slow growth at first. We grow consistently, but when you're, it just took a while because we weren't sure about a pricing scheme, and it's just all the normal stuff you start out with a business. And so, we started getting some momentum, and then 6.5 years in a year, 6.5 years ago, we hired our first employee. Because it's really, like, since we started, my dad and I started together, right? There was already 2 of us, so we overcame that first hurdle of needing to add that first person on, because now there's already 2 of us. But of course, we weren't really making a lot of money that point in time. But we needed a employee there to basically be there all the time as a tech, so that we could do the networking and all the other stuff we were doing, and still have the phone manned. And so we hired a guy who went to church with me. It was a great fit in a lot of ways. It was a great first employee. But when he left, he told me something that I found very gratifying, which is, he's like, before I went to work for you, I thought I wanted to start my own business. Now I realize I do not.
And that's a compliment.
Well, it's harder than people think, right? They think it's going to be easy. And it is not easy, right? It is really not easy.
I think that's what's great about you, Benji, is you're a pretty transparent person. I'm not sure how you are in the office, but I would assume you probably are. So talk a little bit about the culture, right? You're starting to hire employees. I mean, it's you and your dad, and your dad, first of all, I love my dad, and we agree some days and we don't agree other days. So that had to be an interesting dynamic.
It can be, and we've been told by staff several times we argue too loudly a lot.
Yeah.
But it's nice. Like, I mean, I have friends that have come from families they could not trust to run their business with. Mm-hmm. Never been a problem for me. The fact of the matter is, like, my parents, we may disagree on things, but I know they always have my best interests at heart, and so it makes it easy in that regard. But the culture has been, I've been very intentional about that. So in 2018, I went through a Goldman Sachs program, which I talked about a little bit, and it really drove home the importance of culture. And I knew that because, I'd worked at some bad places that had really bad culture.
Yeah.
And you can look them up on my LinkedIn. And so, I know I wanted to make a great place to work. And actually, one of the things that really drove it home was, and this is, it's a relevant tangent, so I'll bring it in. So I lost a child. Our third child died, and after a few days. And so, against the rules, I was working at Brother at the time. My boss said, "Go. I don't want to see you for a month." That was not what was allowed, right? By corporate. But she understood, like, the importance of people, and I came back a month later. She sent me home again after I cussed out someone on a phone call, and so I was not ready to be back at the office.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I wanted to build a place fairly early on that really was about the people involved, and gave them a place, like a refuge to be people. And so I always kind of built the culture with that in mind. And I distinctly remember one time in tech, you get a lot of men, right? Let's just be honest, right? Most of your employees are going to be guys. And a lot of times, if you're not careful, it can turn into bro culture. And so a couple of my techs were joking around, and they started the "that's what she said's" joke. And it really irked me. And it really irked me a lot. And they did it a couple of times, and I turned around and said, "Guys, you got to stop. Like, this is not acceptable here. I don't know why I feel as strongly about it, but this is not gonna fly. Yeah. And I will fire you." And I never threaten my employees, but I will fire you if you continue it. That was flat. And they didn't. They "Oh, okay, I'm sorry." But I realized later on it was, when I really had time to reflect on it, it was because it wasn't, it's not the kind of place we want to be. Like, we want to, that's not valuing people for people. And I get it. My 15-year-old makes the same joke, but he's 15. So I tell him I don't appreciate the joke there too. So, I've always trying to build culture around people and valuing people. Yeah. Because so often in life, that's not the case, especially in our world. I see it so often in my MSPs in my area that just treat their employees like dirt, treat them like disposable cogs. And I think that's morally wrong. And so that's what I'm trying to stop. Yeah,
I think that comes from part of your, the way you were raised, and obviously the family. You're a family man, right? And you have, you're a churchgoer. Like, you absolutely have your feet on the solid ground, right? That this is what it should feel like to come to work. It should be a safe space, right? We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days, but you just need to set the ground rules, set the boundaries, because, it's okay to blow off steam and get frustrated, but not disrespect somebody.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, everyone's, it's let's be honest, it's frustrating, right? And you're going to deal with customers that are upset, and they're generally not upset at you. Yeah. They're just upset, and that's okay. It's, but they're still people, and you need to treat them well.
So you mentioned this a couple times. 2018, you attended the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program.
Yes.
What impact did that have on your business?
That's probably the single greatest impact I've ever had of anything in my business. Like, flat, no holds barred. It took me from being a technician to a business owner. It really did. If you ever have anyone who's watching this has a chance to do this program, you 100% need to do it. It is. It's a great program put on by Goldman Sachs and a bunch of other people. They collaborate together. And it's designed to basically take small business owners who are generally good at the thing they sell, but not good at being a business owner, and turn them into a business owner. Think about it as a business owner instead of the profession you are, right? And that was an absolutely amazing journey. It was really hard. Like, I mean, like 3 months of super condensed learning while you're running a business. That was rough, but it was really beneficial to me. It made me like confident that no matter what, I may not achieve like mega success in the world's terms, but I can run a business. Like, I'm confident, we're going to succeed and grow, to, it may not be as fast as I want sometimes, but we'll continue to succeed and grow. It gave me the tools to make that happen.
Yeah. So about this time you took over as CEO, but your dad didn't want to step out though.
No, he's still there today.
And how did this happen, and how did you manage it without sort of awkwardness at that time?
Well, it's kind of gradual. Like, after I did the Goldman Sachs program, I more and more took the lead and stuff. And then it's very gradual. But all the employees always knew, we were very clear up front that, like, while my dad, Ken, may have been running the company at that point in time officially, it was always going to be me stepping in, right? And so everyone knew this was going to happen. It's a matter of when it was going to happen. And so it was very, even though I wasn't officially the CEO, it kind of ran that way no matter what. And so it wasn't awkward at all. I've had friends where that's been a weird thing for them when their dad steps, it was kind of a natural transition. It worked really well. And so he stepped in kind of the CFO role. He likes playing with data and numbers. And so, and I just took over the official title of running the business.
So how did you, I know you talked a little bit about the Goldman Sachs program helping you think more like a business owner, but how did you actually transition from the technical work to the business management? How'd you learn those soft skills?
So when I was working for Brother, I was in charge of mentoring. I was a senior developer in North and South America. And so I was in charge of mentoring and building the team in a lot of ways, as well as doing the actual technical work. So it kind of started there. And I'd always worked on it and stuff. And that was always been, because I code, is code, going back to code, like it's fun. I enjoy solving puzzles and stuff, but at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing over and over again. Because because computers act in the same manner. I mean, it's sort of squirrely sometimes, but by and large the same manner. But people are endlessly inventive, right? People are endlessly, and I like new things. So therefore, I really started enjoying dealing with people in a lot of ways, because they're always a new challenge, right? Yeah. It can be frustrating, don't get me wrong. There are days I'm like, oh my gosh. But dealing with people is kind of the ultimate thing. But it stretches me. It does wear me out. It's not my natural inclination. But I understood that if I was going to grow the business the way I needed to, I'd have to hand things off, right? I mean, I couldn't do it all myself. I didn't want to do it all myself. When I got back from the Goldman Sachs program, we did a SWOT analysis of the company, and the greatest threat everyone in the company identified at the time was me killing myself by working too much. And so, flat. I was working 100-hour weeks, for months straight. And they're like, you've got to stop. And when I realized they're right, I've got to stop. I got to slow down. Then it's a matter of, affording the people to hand it off to.
Yeah.
So,
how'd you do that? I mean, how do you approach this new work-life balance? And again, I've gotten to know you. You have 6 kids. Yeah. Obviously, you've got your hands full. But how do you shed some of that?
So it's actually, I love work. I love work. I love hard work, physical. I don't know. It's part of who I am. I have a drive to do things. And so it's been difficult in a lot of ways. Yeah. I slowed it down, and it's kind of gradual over time. But it was like, stepping back was difficult. It really was. And I mean, it's normal, right? That's every entrepreneur goes through this, handing things off, trusting someone to do the job for you. But it really drove home one day when, I don't remember the details, but one of the guys had done something and he did a better job at it than I would have. I'm like, okay, that's it. I don't have to be the font of all knowledge. I don't have to be I'm hiring people hopefully who are better at doing the thing than I am.
Yep.
And my job is to give them guidance as needed. Yeah. And so that's what I shoot for.
I have the same challenge that you do. It's like, I don't know if it was the way I was raised or just my aggressiveness in the situation is, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, right? But that's not the answer when you have a million things you're responsible for, right?
And not only that, you work until you're done, right? Whatever that looks like. I mean, it's the farm. It's like I got it from my farming grandparents. Yeah. When there's work to do, you work. Yeah. It doesn't matter how tired you are. You work till the work's done.
What are you the most proud of over the last handful of years? Obviously, I know you're not done growing, you're not done transforming your MSP, but what are you the most proud of? What you built?
The team we've assembled is amazing. It really is. They're a great group of people. It's been fun learning over the years who's going to work in an organization, who's not going to work in an organization. But one of the things we really talk about is care and compassion and empathy. And we have an amazing group of people who are technical in nature, right? They do a technical job, but they also understand the value of human beings and showing care and compassion and empathy to people. And they do. I've always wanted to build something like the Ritz-Carlton kind of thing, where people are empowered to solve problems, maybe not any technical problems, but problems people have.
Yeah.
And so they'll do things and they'll tell me about it, like someone's one of our customers was having they were getting doing their annual or biannual audit of the thing they've got to apply, and like they were having a rough time to get through it, and so like they brought them pizza, right? We had someone his mother was in the hospital and they were in Nashville, or the mother was in Nashville, they remember him, so they bought them gas cards to help pay for the gas because they were doing trips 2 or 3 times a week. Just ways of caring for each other and caring for our customers. And in addition to solving their technical problems, right? Being great on the technical side too, but just being good people with people.
Yeah. There's something neat about you that I thought I'd mention on the podcast. Not too many people do this, but you're a good listener, and you listen to people talk about, I like this author, or I like this topic, or read this book, and you have a knack for sending people a copy of a book that you thought they might value. And why do you do that?
I love knowledge.
Yeah.
And long ago, like when I was young, I thought I had to come up with all this stuff on my own. It was really, I don't know where I got that idea. But when I realized that, people have tread this path before and there's wisdom to be waiting out, like I want to spread that so that it makes everyone's lives better, right? Like if you can shortcut me if I can read your story or read something that you've written, it's going to help me shortcut something, and I don't have to like do all the hard work myself, because there's plenty of hard work to do even further down the road, right? I will gladly do that. And so I want people to, have the same benefits that I can, like whenever I can provide them. It's we all grow together. We all, if the rising tide lifts all boats, right? And I want to help be that kind of rising tide, help good people, do good things.
That's great. Yeah, that's what I really love about you, Benji. You definitely are a unique soul, and it's interesting. The people that you do interact with, guys like Jimmy, guys like Boyd, I always hear them bring your name up, and it's always in positive, right? Oh, I had this conversation. Man, what Benji said was really interesting. So you definitely have an impact on folks for sure. So what's next for you, Benji?
What's next for me? This month I plan on taking a lot of time off, actually.
Good for you.
Spend time with the family. Although life always intrudes, but for me, it's really about being more comfortable with who I am. Earlier this year, I did something that it may sound horrible to people, it may sound great, but I took a think week, modeled after Bill Gates' think weeks, and I went to a cabin in the woods. And it was the most refreshing time I've had in my life. And I was there by myself, which I'm an introvert, so that was great. I did miss the kids, especially after the first couple of days, because I live in a house of 6 kids and it's insane all the time.
Yeah.
So it was a little weird having quiet time.
Yeah.
But I would get up in the morning, I'd eat some breakfast, I'd go for a hike. I love hiking. And since it's Alabama and it's January, it could be 30 degrees, it could be 80 degrees. And luckily it was more like the 70, 80 range. And so it was beautiful weather on the trails by myself, because it's the middle of January and the week. And I wouldn't see another soul, and I'd hike for, 3-4 hours, go back, eat some lunch, and crack open a business book and read a business book until I went to bed that night. And just think and ponder and pray and do things that just really replenish my soul. And that was amazing. And it really helped me understand that I've got to take better care of myself. I'm the kind of person who traditionally would not do a good job of that. But that if I want to be the man I need to be for my family and for for my employees, that I've got to take a better care of myself. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I want that as well. So what's next for Sawyer Solutions?
So, Yeah, I had this really crazy idea that I'm rethinking. And so like I was working with a sales coach and she was great. And we had just, last year we had completed our first 10X. So we started the company, we made like $180,000 or $160,000 the first year. Last year we made $1.8 million. And so that was 10X bigger than we were when we started. It took us, like 10 years to get there. I'm like, great. So, I finished reading Dan Sullivan's 10X is easier than 2X. It's a great book. All of Dan Sullivan's books are great. And I was like, what's our next 10X going to be? What are we going to do here? And I was talking to her about it and I was like, I did the math. And I'm like, yeah, we can do it 8 years. And it's like, you're really comfortable with the 8 years. Why don't you push it further? I'm like, I am comfortable with 8 years. The math adds up. I can do it pretty easily in 8 years, I think. So I decided I would try to push it to 6 years. So that was this year's goal, was to like kind of launch that off. And after doing that, I'm not sure I want to do that. Like that's like, I think I want to grow a little slower. I may not. I'm still trying to figure out like if I want, like where I actually want to be, right? Because it's like, and how fast, how much effort I want to put into getting there,
right?
How much sacrifice is worth it, right? I have 6 kids. My oldest is now 17. She turns 18 in January. Our youngest 2 are turning 5 in a month. Actually, yeah, and there's only so much time with them, right?
Yeah.
Like I can build a bigger business later, right? And I've missed a lot of their times.
Sure.
I sacrificed a lot to get the business to where it is, and so I really taking time to think like what is I really want to do, and rethink my plans. And I'm probably right now, which I may change, but right now I'm leaning towards, it's okay to be smaller. I can be a small big, a small giant, if you will, have an outsized impact. But one of the things that's really important to me is we have a mission to change the world that IT is delivered. Oftentimes, you know this because I'm not wearing it, but I have the No Jerk shirt, which is infamous around Enable and the events. And one of our core values is if you're a jerk, it ain't going to work. And we mean that for our customers, we mean that for our employees, because too often in our industry, as a matter of fact, it's people don't even realize this is an option, but like people are just talked down to, they're belittled, they're made to feel small because they don't know something that the technician does. And that's wrong, morally and ethically wrong. And so I'm on a mission to change that about our industry, to make it so the industry is one of actual service, right? We are providing a service to people. Technology is how we're delivering this, like it's around that, but it's to a people, right? We were doing this to people, for people, and we need to take that into account. And so, our actual mission is to change the way that technology is delivered so that it's done with caring and compassion. And so that's a big, lofty mission. And I'm just still getting, like, that's not the finished, polished version of the mission statement. I'm still working on that. But
sure.
But it's okay if it takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones. Like, I'm not saying that we're the only ones who had this idea, because I know we're not. Like most of my my friends that I've met through these Enable events have been, we all share the same idea in this regard. I'm just the one who's most openly talking about it. And so, it'd be easier to make that impact if I was a $100 million company, but I've also got to balance that against the actual personal weight and measurements. What it's going to do to my personal life and stuff. So I don't really know what's exactly next, except for I want to keep pushing down the road of trying to show people that this is how it should be done.
Have you started to think at all about the long-term plan? Like where you want this to go? I mean, there was a succession plan for you. Is that what you think might be there for? I mean, your kids are young, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have an age range.
Yeah.
The plan's always been in this case to basically, it's to make it a lifestyle business. I don't really plan on selling it anytime soon.
Yeah.
But to potentially, have it where the kids can take over if they want to. There are other businesses out there that I really admire. There's one who's turned his business recently into an ESOP, so that his employees can take ownership of it. There's another business. This is really fascinating. It's actually a crane business out of Memphis, and they're basically turned themselves into a nonprofit. They give away half their profit every year is reserved for growth of the company, and half their profit is donated to charities.
Wow.
And the owners, like when the owners bought it out from their dad, and when they took over, they set how much money they'd ever make, and like that's been it. And so like they're not cashing in, like they're very, very free how much money they have and stuff. And there are lots of options in that kind of thing for me to figure out. I don't really have a driving urge to work on that right now. But I do think about it from time to time.
Awesome. So the last question I want to ask you is, when did you know, now that's it?
So I was driving from Memphis. When we first started doing this, I was still working for Brother. And so I'd drive from Memphis to Birmingham to do things. I had a lot of time banked and stuff. And so I remember driving down the road, and as you mentioned, I'm a man of faith, and I was like, is this really it? I was having this long prayer because it's 4 hours in the car by myself. And I got the answer, this is it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, are you really sure? And the guy answered yes. I'm like, okay, then I will do this until you tell me otherwise. And so that's when I realized this is it. I'm doing this until I'm told otherwise.
So great, Benji. It was a real pleasure having you this week. I am so honored to have met you in the last couple of years and gotten to know you well. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.